Welcome back to BSing with BS. I am your host, Blake Slodick, and today we have our first guest joining us, Justin Kopet. He is a entrepreneur, podcaster, and mastermind of the mind himself, and a good friend. I wanted to start out by telling you congratulations on 5 years with two cities.
Oh,
I got a
thanks.
notification on LinkedIn the other day, so.
Yeah, time flies. I was just talking to Dan about that yesterday. Cannot believe it. Feels like it just started yesterday, to be honest.
So, how did you discover that you wanted to be a business owner?
I think it was something that was always inside of me, and the right opportunity seemed to appear when in reality it was kind of an interesting journey to figure out to get to where I'm at. But looking back, I'm absolutely glad I was very delusional and took the risk.
Delusion seems to be the way through. At least for my person, everything I see too. But nice.
Yeah, I would say to go into the journey, it was. I always thought I wanted to open a construction company. I always thought I wanted to do construction personally,
Okay.
and then just the long days. It sucked, man. Props to those guys that can do it. They are real badass human beings, and it takes a very special, certain type of individual to be able to do that. And I have all sorts of respect for them, just because it's not where I'm at personally, but I've done it and understand what it takes to be able to go and work. And I mean, you have to be able to put in 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 hours depending on, where they're at and who they're working with. So it's very interesting, and a lot of respect to those types of people that can do it.
Yeah. So for those of you that may not know, he runs a concrete leads business company. Would that be the way to say it?
Yeah, advertising company.
For called Two Cities, and you originally poured concrete before that, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Started doing that when you were. I'm trying to think back now. Like 12, I want to say you said, or something like that.
Yeah, I used to tell people like 12. I just worked a couple days out of the week throughout the summertime.
Nice. Now you get into lead generation. So what does that entail? Like, what essentially does your day to day look like now?
I do a lot of sales calls and making sure every single client that works with us is getting results, and just making sure that those results are working, meaning like they're getting appointments, customers are coming through, they're closing deals, these customers have the budget to buy. And I would say concrete is just like one part of it, it's not all of it, but it's been a real good niche to start with, and then we'll continue to expand and grow from there into. I want to do every single home service based business for this specific company alone. So, and then I like the idea of like the brand itself. I think it would be a cool clothing company,
Hmm.
and just many different spins that are kind of in the works. Who knows if we'll follow through on them? Time will tell, I suppose. But yeah, that's where we're at, I suppose.
Nice. So just kind of starting with concrete and expanding into essentially everything almost.
Yeah, I think a lot of businesses, they niche down on parts of the market that they see are going to work best, and then obviously they can go and expand from there.
Okay.
But
Nice insight there. Now that essentially started a business, so thanks. Nice.
I would say like starting it was very interesting, just because it was like I seen the concept of the idea of how it can work, but when it actually came to starting it, I had no idea.
Oh really?
No clue how I was gonna get my first sale. No clue how I was gonna get the business to make money, and it was just very naive because I had this burning desire, you could say, like I'm gonna make it work one way or the other, and I'm willing to put everything on the line for it. And being what, I was probably 20 years old, everyone was like, they're just looking out for me, making sure it's like, dude, if you're gonna do this, like, make sure you do it right, but also understand you're completely burning a bridge of a good paying job that you can always forever be at as long as you stay here, type of deal.
Mm. That's a scary thing. That's a scary leap to take, yeah, for a lot of people.
And I get that looking back at it now, and for people that are like 50, it's like props to those guys because they got, a lot of them have mortgages, car payments, things like that, and maybe some of them have it paid in full, but they see the potential that is out there, and it's a lot on the line to just say I'm good with that consistency that they have coming in, especially with paying the bills and stuff like that. I mean, it all adds up, and I think it's just a perspective that people can get overwhelmed by. But at the other side of it is like you're never going to get more time, but you can always go and make more money. But it ultimately comes down to where they're at, what they want to do, and however they want to go from there.
So you had mentioned Burning Desire, and like when you say that, the first thing I think of is the Napoleon Hill Think and Grow Rich book. Had you read that book at the time of starting your business, or did you read that later?
It was pretty much around the same time. I still do it today, but Saturdays or Sundays I love to mow the lawn. So I'll put on an audio book, and then I'll just mow the lawn. Sometimes it's 2 hours, sometimes it's 4 hours to complete the whole lawn. But I was just reading or listening to the Bitcoin Standard. Maybe we can go into that in a little bit. But yeah, that was it. That was the book I would ride around on the lawnmower pretty much all summer long and just listen to it on repeat. I mean, it was about 10 hours long, so it took a couple mows to really get through. But yeah, that's pretty much where it all began, and I think that's where a lot of people have began with the Burning Desire concept or idea is from Napoleon Hill.
Yeah, that's where I had first heard about it when I read the book, and then us discussing it after me reading it. It really became pertinent, in my life, I guess, because desire does seem to drive a lot of action, you could say, necessarily maybe taken in life.
Absolutely.
And, it's been interesting to see it like unfold in my own life as of late, like what I desire and then me taking action towards it and how that, kind of unfolds. And it all started with that want and the burning desire, essentially.
And what I'm coming to realize now is that the burning desire is the problem.
Really?
Because it's the want that is not actually here. That's negating it from actually being here. So it's like having the belief in burning desire in alignment, I think, is what helps make it to be a reality.
Okay.
Meaning like, yes, I really desire that thing, but at the same time, I'm already there. The whole concept of faith, seeing and believing in the things that are unyet or something like that is what some people say, or
maybe not here yet.
Yeah. But I think, especially with the way neuroscience goes into it, I've been talking about it on my podcast quite a bit, but it's how the brain is like wired. If you can live in that reality of like, hey, I want to be a billionaire, but instead of wanting to be a billionaire, I already am a billionaire in this present moment, and then the actions that I'm taking towards it, I'm already that person, so it just thrives in... What I mean by that is like thriving as in like while I'm doing those tedious tasks or whatever task it is, it gets me in a flow state. And flow state is when everything, or time especially, just seems to disappear, and you're just pretty much in the present moment, and no matter what you have to do, you feel great about it. Because you're feeling great, one, because it's like I'm bringing back that future memory of being a billionaire to this very present moment. And then while I do my task, I understand like each and every task that I'm doing is connecting the dots closer and closer to that reality. And regardless of it actually being a physical reality, I'm already that person. So that's just what I end up deciding, I guess. Very delusional. Very delusional, but I think understanding the mind and consciousness, dude, you gotta be.
Yeah. And that is why I had mentioned the Master of the Mind, because I know you have deep dive into essentially neuroscience, the mind, and consciousness, and probably some other things. But like, what leads you then down that road, or how did you start studying the mind and essentially consciousness and neuroscience and all things like that?
I think they all tie together, but what originally started it is it all starts with a thought, as Napoleon Hill says. Every concept, everything once began as a thought. Somebody once brought up the idea of like, how did people figure out salt was a thing? Like, think of way back in the day. Think of how many rocks they had to lick before they realized, like, okay, this one tastes good for some reason, you know?
Yeah.
And then it just obviously evolves from there. But I think with AI and all the technology, I think we're in the best physical possible time to be alive. And I think we're coming up upon, so on X, there's this guy who calls himself the highest IQ individual.
Okay. Interesting.
Is it true or not true? I don't really know, but
No.
if he's got the balls to be saying that, I'm guessing his IQ is probably one of the top. But he says, in this generation, we're going to see Jesus Christ return.
Really?
That's what he claims. And I think it's just more continuous proof that, maybe we will see him return. But at the same time, it's like, dude, think of the times that we're living in. I think we have it all, and it's only going to continue to get better. And then the book of Revelation talks about the 1,000-year reign, to where it's like, that's going to be 1,000 years where we get to live on earth. Jesus Christ is going to be upon us and with us. And I would guess that, like, if this whole place is evolved around that book or something along those lines, that it's going to be pretty damn good. I feel like we got to be right on that verge. So
Interesting. I had heard a concept the other day about how AI and essentially Jesus, like, that we may give birth to Jesus through AI, and they would consider that a virgin birth. And I'm not doing it justice on describing how it was talked about, but like that was the background. Like, it would be a super intelligence that we programmed to essentially look out for us and almost act, like Jesus, or maybe be Jesus, depending on
sure.
how that works with AI. That I have not researched enough, but
Yeah,
it was an interesting concept when I listened to it.
so many interesting concepts, like the video of the egg.
No.
That one was very interesting.
yeah, it was. So for some reference, he had sent me a YouTube video, and look it up yourselves. Maybe it was just called The Egg, right?
The egg, yeah, it's got like a blue thumbnail on it.
On YouTube, and it's basically just combining every worldview into almost one, and saying that every religion or like culture has pieces of essentially like the universe correct, and when you combine them all together, it gives us this grand explanation. Is kind of how I interpreted it, I guess you could say.
That's an interesting perspective. The way that I was interpreting it too is like, it's essentially like the Inkwot test or the Inkwot theory, or the idea of, say, for example, metaphorically, nobody outside of you is real. Those are all just other versions of you that you, say, lived throughout this millennial, because time, quote unquote, is not real. And those are just you in a different version, like you're just a different version of me type of deal, and we're all here living it. And I think then you bring it down to earth, and we all obviously have like consciousness and awareness and all of that great stuff. So it's a deep dive, and I think it can freak a lot of people out, because ultimately, like, what are we doing here,
No.
It's still a great question that I have, but I think that purpose within you, it's maybe a burning desire, a burning passion, or a burning understanding that this is my purpose, this is why I'm here, this is what I'm meant to be doing here. And I think each and every person has that. They just have to tap into it.
Interesting. So speaking of consciousness and like how deep we want to go necessarily down the rabbit hole, that is also what I've done a little studying, I guess, of consciousness, and I was recently listening to a podcast on consciousness, and the guy brought up that that we technically have no way to test for consciousness. or if someone is conscious, or they were comparing it mostly to AI. It was kind of all tied together in the podcast, and so I would like to get your theory on that, or like your thoughts on it. Can we essentially test for consciousness? Like, can you feel somebody else's consciousness, or how would we essentially know if another person is conscious or unconscious, especially with like the rapidness of AI? And this might not be a question for you, but just like to get your thoughts
That's
on
interesting.
it. Yeah.
Meaning, like, are they NPC, non-player character type of deal?
You could say that, yeah, kind of similar idea, yeah.
I think you have a intuitive knowing that will tell you if that's an intellect or a higher level of consciousness person. David Hawkins, Frederick Dotson, they talk about like muscle testing it.
Mm.
So how true is that? I think it comes down to the individual. I think understanding like baseline behavior profiling will really help you with that too, and understanding people's body language, especially just because a lot of people, almost, I would say probably 99% of people wear mask. So it's just like you want to be able to connect to them beneath the mask and actually be open with them and have good conversations with them. Otherwise, like the mask that I see now over the weekend, I would say is like, how's it going? Oh, it's going good. What have you been up to? Just working. It's like, okay, well, clearly I haven't gone past the mask, but it's all time and place, I think, for me, to where it's like in a big crowded environment where there's a band playing, it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm just working. It's going good. I can barely talk right now because I have to scream to you, even though we're sitting this far away because the music's so damn loud. But still a good time. Time and place, I think, always plays in a factor. But
they may have had other things on their mind that they were more focused on, possibly.
Yeah,
not
easily.
getting into a deep conversation, I suppose.
That's why I feel like it's tough for me to go to those places, because it's like, fuck, I've talked to 15 people and they all said things are good. I'm just working. And that's kind of where it stops. So I'm working on that part, though. I'm working on it.
Aren't we all? I mean, when you boil it down, if you're just being broad, that's kind of what we are all doing. If we're doing good and working on, our own thing, whether it's concrete or designing at a desk or doing whatever. We're all working on something essentially.
And I get that answer too, because it's the understanding of like humans are very selfish. They don't really care what other people are doing. So it takes a very unique and specific individual that will, kind of open up that door and want to go deeper and have a good, meaningful conversation. There's a lot of people that want to have good, meaningful conversations. It's just, I think it comes down to the time and place of it.
Yeah. Speaking a lot about time. Time seems to be a hot commodity, especially now. There's so much going on in the world. You got to do this, got to do that, got to get to there. You got to essentially almost protect your time. Is kind of what I've realized over the last few months and years. But
simplify it.
Yeah.
Simplify how you spend your time, especially online. I don't really spend time online like doom scrolling. Like if I'm on there, I'm looking at how are these other advertisements looking? Do I like them? Can I add them to my business? And then yes, I have a couple hours. Normally it's on a Saturday or Sunday where it's like, fuck up. I completed everything. Sorry, bleep that out.
It's all right.
Uncensored. Yeah, every Saturday or Sunday I will spend a couple hours just doom scrolling, just kind of see what's up. But I like the idea of like simplifying my time to where it's like technology and information is moving so fast to where it's like I just got to go to one platform, scroll through a handful of like tweets. X is where I go for like current news, current data on like what's going on in the world type of deal. Like verify it with like 7 accounts, and then understand like, oh, okay, this is what's happening. Like the war, you can go on a trending and it's like number 2, or number 1 trending, and it's like, okay, there's a war going on. We'll kind of monitor it to make sure it's like, hopefully we're not going into World War III type of deal. But yeah, normally you can get on there, get out pretty quick, and just keep moving on.
I would say that's probably my least favorite social media platform. So it's interesting
Really?
that you go straight to it. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just because I haven't tailored it to necessarily going on my following and using that page more. But like the For You page, I feel like it's literally everywhere on my algorithm. Like I'll go from insightful tweets to like updates about the world to random things. Click on this, I'll send you something, to people violence and porn, and it just goes literally all over. But I suppose that's the benefit of free speech is it's literally all on there. But
Yeah, absolutely. I think curating it is probably one of the best things that I did was just go in there, follow a bunch of things around like stocks, crypto, current news, some world leaders. I like to follow Trump because he says funny things.
I follow Elon too.
Yes,
He's
too,
been
yeah.
saying some stuff. Yeah.
They say some wild shit, but yeah, no, I think it just helps me stay connected with the world. Otherwise, I think it's very easy to just get in your own little ecosystem, which when you can curate it, I think that's what I finally figured out is how to curate my ecosystem just to absolutely thrive. And it is the best feeling in the world. Because it's like tying in what we talked about of like, hey, I'm this person, and then bringing it back to now, and then each and every task is just getting you closer and closer and closer to it. But at the same time, you're already feeling like you are that person. So it's just like now everything is clicking. Plus, you have the idea of like, I am this identity, and I'm just bringing it back to now, and then just watching it grow and progress from there.
So would that essentially be considered like manifesting it, or is it different?
You could call it manifesting. I'd like with everything as you know me. It's like what does that mean to you in terms of manifesting? But yeah, everyone has
Mm-hmm.
their own different definition of it. But I think yeah, that's how you create what you create what you think about or what you think of comes true type of deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen multiple, not like conflicting, but yeah, conflicting opinions on if it's manifesting versus just acting in a way to attain your goals. And like, I don't have a proper term for it necessarily, but you know, that's kind of where I get it on my online thing. It's more of always like debates than it is actual information. Or I'll usually look for both sides so I can try and form my own opinion, and
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of the online space is everyone one has contradicting ideas, but at the same time, it reminds me of like the birds in my yard around our feeder. It's like two birds will fight over one little spot when in reality it's like it's all wide open for them to go and fly around, but they pick and choose to just fight each other right in this one little area. So I think that's humans as well.
hmm, we are territorial.
Yeah,
As
yeah.
pack animals, territorial.
Like those beliefs are so deep and so rooted that when somebody violates them, it very much so triggers them to have to come and tell them that that person's wrong for that reason. But it's just like the ink blot at play, because it's like why they're getting mad at them is just because they have that part in them that bothers them.
Hmm. So you mentioned the ink blot like a few times now. Could you dive deep? What is the ink blot necessarily?
Yeah, so pretty much what I just explained, such as like if that person is triggering me and I'm saying it's their fault, it's their problem, it's it's the ultimate highest form of responsibility that I've come to find out is that again if we tied in the theory of nobody outside of me is real and that's going on over there because of them, I ultimately should be taking responsibility for it. But the ink blot is like why I'm getting mad at that person is because I see it in myself, but I haven't changed it. I haven't done anything about it. I haven't taken responsibility over it ultimately to change it. And that's why it's their problem,
Hmm.
not me. It's their problem.
Interesting. Yeah, it does take a lot of responsibility to acknowledge something like that and essentially take ownership for that because depending on your view, there's problems all over the world right now, as we have all seen and see online. But like, how far does that extent go then to taking that responsibility?
As of right now, I just see it as in like my personal own results and what is personally triggering me. It's like I have no urge. One, I guess, because financially I can't, is to go stop a war. Like, I don't have the financial backings at this moment to go and solve all of those problems. So it's really just out of my control. But if I could, yeah, that would be great. But financially, I got to take care of myself first, ultimately, so that way I can set my future self up to hopefully go and do that one day, I suppose.
Interesting. Nice.
But yeah, I
You
don't.
got my mind going all kind.
Yeah, I don't
I
think
got
it's.
thinking deep on my own life. I'm reflecting in the middle of a podcast. We're supposed to be talking.
I don't think it's something you take too seriously. It's just like a grain of salt, because it's like, dude, it can drive you crazy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
To where it's like, no, that's not the whole purpose of it. The whole purpose of it is just to figure out like what parts of you need alignment or to be in alignment. So then that way it's like the outcomes are just there and I'm thriving. And Chris Crone told me at one of his events, he's a real estate guy out in Utah. That's how I got started with Two Cities. Is I seen one of his ads, went through, bought their program, and he was up on stage and he said, "I like to have this belief: everything goes my way." I'm like, that's a pretty good belief. That would be pretty cool if everything went my way,
Yeah.
no matter what's going on. And then, it just kind of spins you down the rabbit hole of, okay, well, how could that even be possible, right? Well, then it's understanding, well, consciously, I can only comprehend like 42 bits per second or per minute or whatever it is. I think it's per second, 42 bits. And there's like, in the unconscious, 11 million bits per second or something crazy along those lines, to where it's like, okay, how do you then understand the unconscious, especially if this is all unconscious? Is this chair actually really here?
Okay.
That's what we learned about,
Okay. We gotta dive that far out. I do know what you're referencing, yes.
And I'm not trying to go that deep, but
No,
it's like I
okay.
could, and it's fun to go down, and some people it really freaks them out, and you can tell. So, yeah, take this with your own grain of salt. I know nothing. I think the best way to describe me is Mr. Nobody, which is a really good movie about parallel realities. I really like the name, but it just goes into different concepts, like if you did this, how would life turn out? If you did that, how would life turn out? And it plays all of the lives throughout the whole entire movie. And if something I had to go back and rewatch, Crosby actually recommended it to me. So
Nice. Yeah, I haven't seen it. I might have to tune in and watch it.
the second time I watched it, 100 times better, because I had a really good understanding of how it went or how it finished the first time.
Okay.
So it was like you can then pick up on the small little details of everything throughout the next time, and then it's a lot easier to follow each and every life or the way the decision tree played out for them.
It's interesting. Yeah. Might have to watch that movie, for sure, because I've also heard of a concept that I did not research, but essentially, like, almost every thought we have, it creates like a parallel universe somewhere that essentially thought still goes and thrives even if we don't act on it. But then us in another life or a parallel reality, as we had kind of been talking about, does follow through on that and then essentially end up either attaining the goal or at least, working towards it and going on that different journey.
Yeah, and I think that's how a good concept of understanding like who you want to become and bringing that back to now applies. Because science does prove some sort of way that there are parallel realities out there and that they're going on simultaneously. So, yeah, I don't know. Take it as deep or as little as you want. I don't really care. It's up to you in terms of whoever listens to this in the future or as it comes out. But yeah, it's very fascinating. I absolutely love it, just because it's fun to create, especially when you're in that flow state of creation, to go out there and just build what your purpose is, and then be very delusional about building it and blocking out all of the noise that's out there. And sometimes it's your own traumas or past experiences that are preventing you from getting there. So dealing with those, understanding them, having parts of them reintegrate, and yeah, just living a good life.
Nice.
Being at peace. I think peace of mind is very important.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Don't want to be driving yourself, crazy or being upset all the time and stuff like that, because it doesn't necessarily solve anything. You end up either self-sabotaging or destructing more things than you end up building or creating.
For sure. Yeah, which either way, I suppose.
I didn't necessarily plan on jumping off the deep end like that. We kind of went down a little rabbit hole there, but
I would say that's just who I am as a person. I was telling my friend yesterday, I'm just kind of like the black sheep, but I'm okay with that.
Well, I don't think you're the black sheep necessarily.
I'm more so like the black sheep in like my mom's side and my dad's side.
Okay.
Just because I can have very, very deep conversations like this with anybody, and I believe with where I'm at, I can confidently make it make sense in their mind if they're open to learning. Because sometimes you'll meet people who are very closed off, and it's like I'm talking to this wall. It's just not working. So I think understanding how to profile someone that you're speaking to makes it a lot easier of how deep can you go, or how deep should I not go. We always go this deep, so it's just figured I'd just be normal on the show and just let it fly.
I'm pretty comfortable going deep as well. Took me a little time to get there, but it's been nice understanding more and learning things about myself and obviously others as well. But I have also, in my limited experience of having deeper conversations now, I've noticed though, like you were saying, the body language and stuff like that, like when you kind of start talking about similar concepts or things we are discussing now, that some people essentially do clam up and they're like, I don't want to hear about that, and, which is to each their own. We all get there at one point. And
I think it's just a mask in people. Like when you can remove the mask, you can have this type of conversation with anybody. Because then they're very open. They are not stuck on what is that person going to think about me if I'm talking about this insane, absurd stuff type of deal. But yeah, it's fun. It's always interesting to challenge people's perspectives, and not even challenge them, just see if they can see it in a different light. To where we went to one training, I was with my friend down in Arizona, Mike.
Okay.
And during that training, he was planning on buying a house in like the next 2 years. And then after the training, but just hanging out with me, it was challenging him to like, how can you do that in half the time? And then how can you do that in half of that time? And then it was only like 3 or 4 months later, he did buy the house. He figured out how to become resourceful enough to make it work and make it happen. And vice versa. I mean, he really helped me understand the stock market, to where learning the indicators is very important, and people do make a lot of money on it, and you can do the same. And where I'm at right now is I'm just playing too small. I gotta stop being a little bitch.
We're family friendly.
Yep.
So by saying that, like, playing too small, I had noticed on your Instagram the other day too, like in the message tab now you can put like a note that you had said bull run and stop playing small. Like, what essentially do you think of as playing small then? Like just not shooting for a higher goal, or like how would you describe playing small? I guess.
I think for me, I understand how my theory works. I've just been testing it over the last half a year to a year of like, and I'm still in that phase of like, oh, this might be too risky. But it's like, no, dude, you know it works. You have the evidence that it works. Just invest more money into doing it, and you're gonna make a lot higher of a return. So it's like before when I first started the stock market, it was like, okay, I'm gonna put this in, and it was pretty much a gamble. I had no idea what it was gonna do or how the markets move or what makes them move or how to read the charts in terms of what's gonna cause it to go up and what's gonna cause it to go down. But then understanding those basic things, it was like, okay, this is pretty predictable. Instead of like 100% gamble, it's now like a 25, 30, maybe 50% gamble depending on which stocks and what price points you're jumping into them in.
Interesting.
But just understanding the narratives of the news, how these stocks are doing with like business deals, like are they getting governmental contracts? Because they'll tell you about that stuff. And if they're getting governmental contracts, it's like, okay, well clearly they're probably going to beat their targets and earnings and stuff like that. So then understanding how the Bollinger Bands work, it's like the stock will never go below this price and it will never go above this price point. It's got like a 98% accuracy rate.
Okay.
Meaning it's right 98% of the time,
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, if I can then time that with the plays, meaning buying at the bottom of the Bollinger Bands, holding on to it, or timing the option to give myself enough time that it's going to blow up and pop off and eventually go on a run, I should make a good amount of money. Or like Nvidia, they got governmental contracts. They're one of the biggest semiconductor companies out there, and they got all sorts of foreign business deals.
Okay.
They don't really have competition. I think they just crossed a $4 trillion market cap, and everyone else is in the billions.
Wow. Yeah. Speaking of competition, I mean, yeah, we've kind of touched on this before, but the only other person, or like company I know of that even makes like computer parts as close is like AMD. So.
And I think I know absolutely nothing about it in terms of like learning how the stocks works, but that's the fun in like figuring it out. To where it's like, dude, if I can be doing well when I'm 25, what can I be playing with when I'm 50? And then confidently know like these are the returns that I can expect. But with all the AI stuff, it just helps you understand it better. And for me personally, it doesn't scare me, because at the end of the day, it's like I gotta go do it for myself, so that way I can have the evidence to know like, hey, this works, this does not work. And next time I do it, it's like, okay, just follow this specific pattern and path, and then obviously you're gonna learn a few things along the way there that are gonna help you improve it for next time. But it ultimately comes together as a way to do it faster, quicker, and with a better outcome.
So almost in like simple terms, you could say just a lot of trial and error and learning the process and everything that you've done over the last few years has gotten you to this point, essentially, like you're saying, the stock market and having this understanding.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot more to learn, and AI is going to just continue to make it easier to win.
Yeah, the capabilities seem to be, pretty much endless, I want to say now, and especially at the rate it's accelerating, and like seeing more of the videos online, it's getting a lot better very quickly.
Yeah, so I think, dude, you got to take advantage of it until there's FTC regulations on like, hey, you can't use AI to be your stockbroker type of deal. So it's like, if it's fair game, free game right now, before they tighten that shit up, I'm going to try to leverage it as much as possible.
The way it seems, yeah, you could have or for my limited understanding of it, yeah, you could train it to do pretty much everything. So it's interesting. Might have to train one to be my stockbroker, so then I don't even have to do it. I'd imagine though, like they'd have to put some kind of regulation on that, would they not? Because then essentially it would just turn into another money printer if you could get the AI to make the right plays, and it would be able to scour the internet for infinite data on how the stock is going to go up, down, sideways, whatever way they go. But it's
I think the fiat is a forever crashing thing. Fiat currency is a forever crashing thing.
no.
It's a debt-based system that we live in. So everything, or a lot of things, produce debt, and it's going to be very hard for it to get out of debt, which is why I'm glad you brought that up, because I think Bitcoin is then the way to go about it. And why I think Bitcoin is the way to go about it is because, one, nobody knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is, which by him staying hidden is going to cause Bitcoin to be the number one cryptocurrency that people hedge their assets in. It's going up already 50% a year. Just because, like, look at the other ones. Like, we know a lot of, like, the meme coins or the altcoins, who their owners are.
Okay.
And ultimately, with us knowing who they are, it then allows us to understand, like, we're just enriching that person who then created it. Versus, like, I think if the Bitcoin founder can stay hidden forever, Bitcoin will forever continue to climb and raise in price. And not only that, it'll beat inflation, but it'll be a digital asset to where it's like billionaires no longer have to own hundreds of homes so they can not pay taxes. They can just have digital assets and maybe have a handful of homes that will allow them to store their wealth mainly with Bitcoin, and then just have how many properties they want, because they'll actually be able to go to them, versus having 50 of them and never seeing half of them, or let alone 1 to 2 of them.
Interesting.
Kind of like how the US dollar was backed by gold, which kept its purchasing power very high, because there was only so much gold, quote unquote. But then they took it off the gold standard and they started printing, and forever. I mean, you've seen the charts. I think a lot of people have seen the charts that, we just print and it's pretty much in a straight up skyrocket to where it can only last for so long until it's absolutely crushed.
Yeah.
But I think that's the beauty of Bitcoin is we're also at this time frame to where it's like, okay, we can start to hedge and store money into it. The governments are slowly starting to come around to it. But once the governments and Wall Street and all of those people really come to play, that shit's going to go to $1 million a coin probably overnight.
Wow. That'd be quite the jump, because as we're recording this, I believe it's around 110,000 right now. Dollars would you call it a share? Is it still a share in cryptocurrency? Or for one Bitcoin is around 110. We'll just say it that way.
A coin share, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Interesting.
Because think about it. All of the retail investors came first. That's why we had the pump up to 160 or up to 60 in 2020. All-time highs causes a lot of people to sell off. And there's only 21 million coins. So there's a limited supply of them. And now we're getting to the idea of, like, people are really starting to catch on that, okay, the dollar isn't saving us. It's losing its value. You gotta either work a lot more, have better investments, because inflation's rising at, I would guess it's a lot higher than 12% now, but over the last handful of years it was rising 12%, to where if you have your money in the S&P and it's only doing 4 or 5% a year, it's like, well, I'm still losing half of its buying value.
Yep.
So I think people are going to be looking for different routes and different ways, and I think a lot of those hedge fund managers see Bitcoin as it being a good storehouse of wealth for their investors that are constantly getting, say 50% returns a year. And then as we go through the retail investors, then we're going to get into like the governments, the hedge funds, the big players, to where it's like they're not going to sell that shit after they buy it. They're going to hold on to that for as long as they can, if not their entire life. To where it's like then it's going to just constantly have that baseline price. And instead of going through the fluctuating price points, it's just going to continue to go up because it's just going to get more expensive to buy it.
So, going down that path, then would how not to say that you had the answer, but like how would you see it happening? Would we still have like the current U.S. dollar, but it would be backed by Bitcoin, or would everything be essentially purchased and sold? Like Bitcoin would become the only currency.
I don't think they can do the U.S. dollar backed by Bitcoin just because there's so much money already in circulation that they're not going to stop it. Otherwise, I think that would cause a crash. I think how the U.S. gets ahead is just owning the world's most amount of Bitcoin. Like they're literally sitting on the printers, so they can. And if they wanted to pay off the debt, they could. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think.
Like our national debt?
Yeah.
You think we could pay that off if we wanted?
Oh yeah. Through Bitcoin,
really?
Yeah.
Oh, through Bitcoin. Okay. I thought you meant like with cash that the government has now or something. Okay.
No.
That's what I was looking at.
But you can clearly see the U.S. dollar. The U.S. dollar is a Ponzi scheme, just because it's like they just can print more of it at any time. So it's like even if they printed more to pay off the debts, it's still causing more debts. Versus like there's only a limited supply, 21 million coins, like probably 5 to 10% of them are going to get lost in wallets or misplaces or whatever it is.
Imagine being that guy that bought Bitcoin back in the day when it first came out, put it in a cold storage wallet, now you can't find it.
Well, think of the guy who bought a pizza with it. 2 pizzas of it.
Yeah, I've seen that story, yeah.
Like 10 million Bitcoins, or 10,000 Bitcoins he paid for 2 pizzas.
Be a lot of pizza now. It'd be, I can't, I don't even want to attempt the math off the top of my head, but yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not 10 million, 10,000. So that would probably be what? 100? 100 Bs?
10,000 times 100. What do you add for? Somewhere close.
Or maybe a trillion? Not the place to do math, guys. I'm not your mathematician.
Yeah. I got a C in calculus, alright?
But I think the idea is like once they bring those Wall Street investors to play, so it's like if you can accumulate as much as possible, you never, as Trump said, never sell your Bitcoin, because think about it. Banks are slowly coming into play, and with the banks slowly coming into play, they're gonna then be able to use your Bitcoin as a mortgage or as an asset that you can then borrow against. So think about it. I mean, if Bitcoin's going up 50% a year, you own say 10 coins, and you want to get $1 million in a loan or whatever, and then it's constantly going up. So I see people. I think some of those bigger guys, they'll like Jeff Bezos and stuff like that. They'll just get a loan against their loan type of deal, to where it's like they'll get another or a second loan that will pay off their first loan, and then as the dollar gets cheaper and Bitcoin continues to go up, you just get another loan type of deal that then pays off that first debt, which allows you then to keep all of your Bitcoin. I don't know that's the certain like way to do it, but it's something around that concept of like they're just borrowing against it. Either they have cash flowing assets to make those monthly payments, or they then come back later on, get another loan, and then just pay it off.
I suppose if your interest rate's right and inflation's right, you can time it all out where you're still making money,
Right. Your Bitcoin's going up in value. You're slowly paying off your loan or whatever it is. So one really cool one was I seen people are now going to start to getting into like Grant Cardone. They got
Okay.
a Bitcoin hedged real estate fund, meaning like they're raising millions of dollars. And what's cool about those hedge funds is they can a lot of times negotiate a 0% interest charge for raising that money to buy the Bitcoin. And then once they buy the Bitcoin, they're leveraging it to then buy the real estate. And then once they have the real estate, they have tenants in the real estate, so it's cash flowing. And then that extra cash flow, they then just buy more Bitcoin with. And like Michael Saylor, dude, they're doing like bonds backed by Bitcoin, so somehow they're leveraging the bond market too. This is far above what I know at the moment, but I'll learn more about it as I go, because I think this is the way of the future of how it's going to go. Some people like Mark Moss talks about what you were saying, like instead of it being priced in US dollars, it's going to be priced in the amount of Bitcoin or whatever. Granted, we understand that Satoshi's never going to reveal himself.
So is that like an alias then?
I think so.
Okay. That's what you said. I didn't know that they even had like a alias or a name for the, I'm assuming, or, person.
Yep.
And yeah, I hadn't heard that before, so I didn't know if maybe they had found him or not. But as you mentioned, they do not know the founder of Bitcoin at the moment.
And how the system's structured is very interesting. Go listen to or go read the Bitcoin Standard. It breaks it all down, especially its securities. Its securities are very interesting to where it's like, to do a transaction, it costs a certain amount of money. And then the security behind it is it costs a lot more money to do a fake transaction than it does to do a real one. In each and every transaction, all of these wallets all around the world communicate with each other.
Sorry about that abrupt ending there, folks. We experienced some technical difficulties yesterday, and I had to record on a device that I did not plan on recording on, and we ran out of storage. So that is where this podcast ends. And if you would like to find Justin online, follow him on Instagram and X at I am Justin Kopet, or check out his podcast, Justin Kopet's Journey. Thank you guys for tuning in to BSing with BS this week, and we'll be back next time. Peace.